Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Fuck J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number one in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Hey, you guys picked a great week to tune in. This is Tiger Claw Radio. What's going on, everybody? I have got some spicy fresh chiptunes for you. They're fresh from the chiptune deli. All right, so let's see. The last big competition over at Battle of the Bits came and went, but it was the VCV rack competition. It had 19 entries, and I gotta say, the whole VCV rack type music, it seems like a lot of noisecore to me. So I really had a kind of a bit of a hard time getting down with it. But now we're in the middle of Spring Tracks 7. All right, you can tell they're good because of the number of entries. All right, so 106 people have put tracks up, and I went through all the ones that were available as far as last night, and I got some choice songs for you guys this week on Tiger Claw Radio. Also coming up, we got Atari Fever continued. Billy Mitchell, his disgrace continues. More about that coming up. All this and more this week on Tiger Claw Radio. I'd also like to point out before we get into the first chiptune, there is finally a new release over on Pterodactyl Records. Pulsing has a release out called Tomorrow the World. Unfortunately, it's one track. One track is about 11 minutes long, and it's an achievement in length and in sort of a single concept album type thing, but it doesn't really fit the TCR format. So if you want to hear if you want to hear Tomorrow the World from Pulsing, you'll have to head over to Pterodactyl Records, pick yourself up a copy. It's free, and Pulsing makes good music. I've played his tracks here on TCR before, quite some time ago. He was in the rotation before I discovered Battle of the Bits. But anyway, this track is called Heart of the Matter from Pettit. Petit. It's not petite. It's got a couple extra letters in it. Anyway, if you like that track, you'll have to head over to battleofthebits.org. Get yourself a copy of the MP3. Leave a comment. Tell me you heard it on Tiger Claw Radio. Oh my goodness. How awesome would it be for an artist to find out they've been played on TCR and be happy about it? That would be amazing. I don't know if it would go down like that, though. In any case, let's head over to the Vancast. Before we do the Vancast, let's talk about a couple things. I want to talk about this Billy Mitchell thing because there's not a whole lot I have to say about it. Billy Mitchell was banned from Twin Galaxies. So this was like the complete rainbow package. His scores were stricken, and he was barred from submitting new scores. On top of that, they gave the first million point game title to Steve Wiebe of King of Kong, essentially really changing how that movie ended. As far as do I care about, nobody likes Billy Mitchell. He's the heel of that movie. He's the bad guy pro wrestler of those early games. So it does kind of suck to hear that he was using unscrupulous methods, but he did leave a comment. He did respond to the controversy and insist that he is innocent of all wrongdoing, and I can say he can keep his titles as the biggest Donkey Kong dork of all. They can't take his hot sauce business, so you can't make hot sauce in MAME with save states. Oh man, Billy Mitchell, what a character. They said he was the first one to ever play a perfect game of Pac-Man. Not just the highest score, but the perfect game, getting all ghosts and all bonuses on all stages. I can't imagine the level of, I want to say concentration, but I don't think that's the right word. Anyway, that's Billy Mitchell. Weird guy whose story came to a weird end. Let's head over to the Vancast for Monday morning, because I think Monday morning I was feeling a lot better than I am now, to be perfectly frank with you. So let's travel back in time. You know, last night I did what I finally had been talking about doing for so long. You guys listening to the Vancast Monday morning driving to work. This is my late week. So it's 8 o'clock and I'm still out on the road. I've usually been at my desk for at least an hour by now. Last night, I got up my Atari 2600, finally got it running, finally made it happen. Last week I was kind of piecemealing it. Whenever I had a free minute, I was like, alright, now we'll get out the AC adapter. But after the kids went to bed, last night, I went through some Atari games. I believe last week I played through the new ones. Right, so I played MASH, which was a pretty good game. But last night was the first night where I opened my drawer of Atari games. And I got out, like, all my old favorites. And I also got out my my high score book, which is like a sacred tome in my house now. And I played some games. I played some Berserk, which was great. I hit about 7,000 in Berserk, which was pretty fun. I'm hoping tonight I can get some Berserk in and play game 2. Because that's one thing I didn't do. I didn't play the game that has the little bouncing death head that makes it harder. That doesn't come out by default. You have to change it to game 2 to play that, which is pretty sweet. Berserk has got to be like one of, if not the single greatest Atari games out there. And it's also like super, super cheap. You know, if there's a new collector, Berserk's like $3, and there's a billion copies out there. That's like a weird thing about the Atari I noticed, is a lot of the greatest games for the Atari are among the most common games. And I know there's exceptions to this rule, but the more obscure and expensive you get, I think the weirder the games get. Like the adult-themed games are the super expensive ones, and then you got like Air Raid, which is like thousands of dollars. To be fair, that's an okay game, but weird games that didn't get made a lot of. But yeah, it was great. Played Berserk. I played a little Pitfall as well. Pitfall's another great game, but that was kind of front and center in my mind because of that shout out I got from Gaming Palooza Empire about my old Pitfall high score. Played some Pitfall. I made it to about 5,800 points. You get that 6,000 and then you start getting hit and dropping down a little bit. And that's probably about as far as I made it. But to be fair, I only ran through Pitfall maybe twice. It's a great game. I enjoy Pitfall. I hear people talk bad about it because it's so simplistic and there's no real end game. But that's Atari, man. That was the name of the game. It really was. So I counted up all my Atari games. I've got 63 Atari games, including the couple that I have that are in box that don't really get played, and including the ones I have that don't work. I've got, I think it's Mega Mania or Megalomania. I think it's Mega Mania from Activision. Had like a bright orange, reddish label. That has never worked on my machine since I got it when I was a teenager, and I have still kept it all these years. I can't be sure if it's just my system doesn't read it well, or I don't know. For some reason, I can't let it go. Maybe because it was one of my first Atari games. But I've got that, and also Dark Cavern, which is an amazing game. I think I might have shown this in a video at one point. My copy of Dark Cavern, the circuit board slipped out of place, so it just rattles loose in the cartridge. So in order to play the Dark Cavern, I had to tear open the back of the cartridge. There's a big hole in the plastic in the back where I could pull out the loose circuit board. And with some practice, some trial and error, I can carefully place in the bare, loose circuit board and play Dark Cavern that way. Dark Cavern's a great game. I think the top-down shooters on Atari are probably my favorite. You know, anytime where you're playing a game that's kind of like Pac-Man but with a gun, I'm in. Wizards of War was one that I've had forever, and I think I just played it for the first time last night. It's one of those games where it wants you to use the right joystick for some reason. And I would turn it on, and my joystick is always plugged into the left. So I would turn it on, and then I'd be like, why isn't any of the inputs working? I don't understand this. And I don't think I ever figured that out until recently. Indiana Jones was like that as well. Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's a right joystick only game, if I'm not mistaken. So that was cool, man. So I did what I always do in situations like these, is I started looking at other possible Atari games to pick up. And I can't remember what I settled on. I ordered something, but it was a game I hadn't heard of. I was looking up games that were affordable, and then I was looking up long plays on YouTube of the ones that looked interesting to see what actually looked like it would play good. You know, there are a lot of games that look really cool in the Atari, but aren't so cool when you actually play them. That was like the name of the game back in those days. Very cool. So, it's like Moon Patrol or Surface Patrol or Planet Patrol or something like that was a game that I settled on. It was like a cartridge shape and design that I have never seen or owned before. So that should be pretty cool when it shows up. so that's the Atari. Now, I know I did the Atari special like 2 episodes ago, so I don't want to talk too much more about that. I've had Atari fever this past week or so, however long it's been. I've also been into CD-based computer games, which is like another thing that I've had forever, but haven't really been playing. I mentioned installing Return to Krondor, I think 2 weeks back. That game's bad. I'm so sorry, it's bad. Look, Betrayal at Krondor was a game I remember being like a first-person adventure game. Kind of like the early Elder Scrolls games, like Daggerfall. But you had a party, and it was, very primitive, and that was the game I wanted to play. But what I actually installed was the sequel, which, when I played it, it feels a little bit more like Alone in the Dark. If you've ever played the original MS-DOS version of Alone in the Dark, that's what Return to Krondor felt like. It's bad. And I've had this is a CD that I owned, CD-ROM. It's been sitting in my collection for a long time. I think it might be the first time I've installed it. I think it's been in my collection all this time, however many years I've had it, thinking that it was Betrayal at Krondor or something like it, and then not knowing it was this game that I don't care much for. So that's kind of a shame. Okay, here's another thing that happened. I finally set up a Battle.net account, and I downloaded the Battle.net client, Blizzard games, I had an account years ago, probably almost 10 years ago. That's what I was doing when I first started TCR. You guys remember, if you've ever gone back and listened to the first 3 or 4 episodes of TCR, when I had Systems Overload with me, we talked a lot about World of Warcraft. We were playing World of Warcraft at the time. So that was when I was using Blizzard. So I was still able to recover that account, which was cool. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted to play StarCraft. I've got StarCraft on CD, right, in my massive CD collection, StarCraft, and then I also got the Brood Wars CD expansion. And I really wanted to give StarCraft a try because I've never played it, and I've had those games forever. Not only do I have those 2 games, but I've also got the instruction manual, the Prima strategy guide for StarCraft, as well as Brood War. So I finally installed StarCraft because it's free if you go and get your Blizzard account set up and get the client, whatever. But what I found weird was it was like 7 gigabytes for the original StarCraft. Not HD, not enhanced, just plain old StarCraft. 7 gigabytes. It's pretty hefty. Actually, that's a lot hefty. And I can't quite figure out where all that is coming from. I played it a little bit. Playing StarCraft right now is been a lot like trying to play the Atari was. I downloaded the client, and then I got called away from my computer. And then I went in and hit install, and I got called away from my computer. And then I came back, and it was still installing, and I got called away again. And then I came back, and I finally got to fire it up and play it. And I loaded the first mission of the Terran campaign, which is like, all right, you're going to play StarCraft for the very, very first time. That's what you play. And I played it for maybe 5 minutes. And I got called away from my computer again, and that's the last time I played StarCraft. Technically, on paper, I can now say I've played it. Which is, I guess, an accomplishment. It's one of those things I guess you have to do in your gaming career at some point if you're a PC gamer. But the real question is, what would I be playing if I were back in my place? If I didn't have to go to work today, there's a lot of rain out right now. Suppose it was flooding and I just stayed home. What would I play? Well, I'll tell you what I'd play. I'd fire up that Atari. Whew, man. Flip open that scoreboard. I love it where there's certain games that I've had for a really long time, like Berserk is a prime example, where in my scorebook there's scores from like 2011, and then 2 rows below that there's a score from 2012, then a couple rows below that 2014, and now a couple of scores from last night. So there's a few instances where long-running games, I'm looking at scores, the collective high score achievement of the better part of a decade of gaming. It's really awesome. Listen, guys, if you want to go out and get yourself a book to write some scores in, do yourself a favor. Get a nice high-quality book. Don't get a spiral-bound notebook. At the very least, get a composition notebook that's sewn together with thread. Because I had no idea that I was going to keep this thing for so many years. And now it's got like letters taped in it that people sent me when they sent me stuff through the mail. Like I've got little postcards, not postcards, but 3x5 cards from Hemrock for various things he sent me. And Dalamar sent me something at one point from Wasted Seconds, and I got a note taped in there from him, and Maximum RD. So now it has become something very special, which is really, it is my video gaming scrapbook, if such a thing existed. So that's what I would play. I would play my Atari. What specifically? I'd probably warm up with a game of Berserk. I can't decide if I would warm up with a game of Berserk or a game of Pitfall. But I want to try and learn some of the games that I don't know how to play. Some Atari games you've got to like read the instruction manual, and they can just be amazing experiences if you understand what's being depicted on the screen. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to play Star Master. I believe it's called Star Master. It's like a dark blue cartridge from Activision. I think it's called Star Master. First person, like, space flight sim. But you've got to use the colorization switch, right? There's a switch on the Atari that changes from black and white to color. When you switch it to black and white, it brings up like a nav computer instead of making it go black and white. It's actually a brilliant piece of programming because it allows you to utilize more inputs, right? Then you can look at like a map of the galaxy, figure out where the enemies are, and then go in and get them. It's really quite brilliant. The only problem is when I'm actually flying in first-person view, I haven't actually figured out how to run into the bad guys yet. So could be something special. I don't know. I was digging it last night. I just hope I can figure out how to play it all the way. So that's what I would play if I were back in my place. I made this all about the Atari again. All about the Atari again. That's how we're going to open TCI this week. 15 minutes gushing about what has really become one of my favorite systems is the Atari 2600. Maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to put up some money and get like another one of those pre-NES classic systems. I thought about doing that recently. Putting up like a good bit of money and getting a solid working Intellivision or a solid working ColecoVision. Intellivision I had back in the day. I never had a ColecoVision. All right, this is going on long enough, boys and girls. I've got to make my way to the office, where I will be daydreaming Atari dreams as I get through the workday. All right, back to the studios with you. I'll see you there. You can just hear in my voice how happy I was and excited. I had gotten the Atari up and running the night before, and the Atari dominated my week in terms of gaming. The little bit of time I had free to game entirely belonged to the Atari. So I'm thinking we're going to go back to the Battle of the Bits Spring Tracks competition and play some of the other tracks I got, because those are really top notch. But first, I just want to remind you guys, this is a Patreon sponsored program, and I'd like to take a minute just to thank those who are contributing. I can't offer these guys a whole lot. I give them a copy of the show early once in a while, and I do manage to get some sort of Patreon exclusive content together. And I also like to read their names off in sort of a hall of distinguished gentlemen. And they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Durabka, Six Health of Fury, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thanks very much for you guys giving of your resources to help my little ham and egg program come out every week, because I'm doing everything I can to jump through the hoops to make sure it happens. I got Cub Scouts this weekend with my son, and I have other engagements on Friday night. So here it is Thursday evening, and I'm scraping together a show. So I'll tell you what, let's write it out and see how it comes out. It might be okay. You know, when I look back on my good episodes, some of the best episodes were the ones that were done under some sort of pressure. I was sick, I didn't have a lot of time. I don't know what it is, but it's the routine is really the worst thing for the show. Is when you sit down and everything feels routine. That's really the worst possible place I think I can be. So this is Tenkala playing Ceramic Ivy. And then after this, we're going to go back to the van. You guys are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. You know, it occurs to me, before we go back to the Vancast, when I met up with Hemrock last weekend, he was in the car. He was in the van, the vehicle for which the Vancast is recorded. And I had the phone that I record the Vancast with in my pocket. And we drove to Panzer Studios. And not once in all of that did I pull my phone out. And I wished after the fact I'd been, hey, we're Vancasting now. I can't believe I didn't do that. I let that whole meetup come and go, and I didn't do it even once. Oh well, what are you gonna do? I had fun. Actually, that raises a good point. Sometimes I worry that if you take too many pictures and you make too many recordings, you miss out on things as they were happening. That's something I've noticed in life. So Just a little food for thought. All right, boys and girls, let's go back to the van. There's some good video game talk going on there. Yes, I promise. All right, we're van casting. It's Tuesday morning. I had a couple of misses in my game hunting recently. This past Saturday, I got out to a yard sale, which is awesome because I've been watching a lot of Bithead 1000, his backlog with a lot of the early yard sailing, and it was the first real yard sale I've been to since then. But I had a lot of appointments in the morning. I didn't get there until like, I don't know, noon or 1 or something. It was really late by the time I got there. So I didn't get any video games, but the lady was like, what system do you have? And I was like, yeah, I go all the way back to the Atari, anything you got. So she starts hollering for her son. She's like, get down here! Do you want to sell any video games? Get down here and sell your video games! And then she was like, I'm sorry, my son didn't get it together, but maybe next time. So that was okay. It was alright. They had a lemonade stand all set up. The kids were with me. We got some lemonade. We hung out. We had a good time. I have a hard time doing like the hardcore thing like Bithead 1000 does. For me, it was just we were outside. We were looking at stuff. These were neighborhood people who live really close to me. But it was a lot of fun. I had a good time. And then yesterday, just after work, stopped by a Goodwill. Not the Goodwill that I hit at last time and got the big stack of Xbox games, but just some local Goodwill that I've passed a bunch of times and never really stopped at. Looked around. They didn't have any video games. Typical great big shelf of DVD movies. They had some music CDs. You got to be careful with music CDs. Sometimes you'll see like the odd PlayStation 1 game just thrown in there, but nothing this time. So that's okay. A couple of misses in the past several days, but it was fun to go out there and hunt, to really be hunting. You know, another shark in the water, as Bithead would say. All right. So speaking of the Goodwill that I hit at, some of the games that I got, I played. I wanted to talk a bit about Tekken 5, which I played. So, first thing about Tekken 5 was it was awesome to find a game that was truly like something I looked up on eBay and was considering just straight up ordering. So that was among the pile from my outings with Hemrock, and I paid about $3 for that one. I don't think Hemrock got anything while we were out, but yeah, so I brought that one home and I played it. Big step up from Tekken 4, I'll say that much. But here's the thing that I think makes it worth mentioning on the air. Alright, it's got the one-on-one fighting action that you would expect from a Tekken game. But there's also a separate adventure mode. Now, I know of 2 other fighting games that did this. One is called Tobal #1 for the PlayStation, where it had like an adventure mode where you can walk around and fight monsters and stuff, but using the fighting game mechanics. And another was Erguise, which was like a fighting game / adventure mode game. So now here's Tekken 5, and it's got this alternate mode. And this alternate mode is so radically different that when you load it up, right? It's an option on the main menu to load this. I wish I could remember what it was called, but so you load this alternate mode, and then it has like a completely separate title screen and everything. It's really weird, but it's cool. It's cool. But one thing I found that was weird was like they had to alter the mechanics of the fighting mechanics, right? So you have a punch, you've got a kick, and they added a guard button and a jump button. There's no guard button in straight up Tekken 5, like when you're just doing one-on-one fighting. You guard by doing nothing. And if you want to low guard, then you just duck and do nothing, and you're low guarding. So I thought that was really neat. It was really like way out there and way far from what I had expected. As adventure games go, I mean, the levels were pretty cut and pasty, pretty bland, but it was really fun and really different. So that's my report on one of the games that I purchased and actually took home and played. I'm also featuring. I was getting ready to talk about lack of memory card space. I'm featuring a lack of memory card space, everybody. It's one of my features. So it's something I'm dealing with right now, is a lack of memory card space, especially for the PlayStation 2. Probably about 6 months ago, I ordered a bunch of memory cards. And I ordered 4 memory cards, and these were the cheap ones from China. And of those 4, only 2 showed up, and they were both PlayStation 1 memory cards. I made videos about it, I think. But anyway, I also ordered a PlayStation 2 memory card. It didn't show up, and I also ordered a GameCube memory card to use on my Wii. That didn't show up either, so that was kind of a drag. But since then, I've been getting like a great big pile of PS2 games, like a big pile. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to get some more PS2 memory cards. It's gotta happen at some point. Otherwise, I'm either gonna have to start erasing data, which I'm not really willing to do, or I'll have to start playing games and not saving at all, which I think I'm also not willing to do. So new memory cards is something that has to happen relatively quickly in order to prevent those games from going stagnant on the shelf. All those games are still hot and new now. You know what I mean? They still have my attention, so they're going to get played at this point. But I discovered with my Atari that if you buy a game and you don't play it for long enough, it starts to earn its place as an unplayed game, as it were. It becomes something that you just sort of gloss over when you look at your games. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't happen to everybody, but I think Steam users can attest to this as well. If you buy a game on Steam and you don't play it for long enough, then it ends up being something that you don't even think about playing. Alright, I think we're going to call it a Vancast, but now it's time to do the thing I always like to do when I sign off the Vancast, and that's if I was back in my place right now and I didn't have to drive in and do my day at work, what would be the game that I would play? And right now, I paused my recording to think about my answer to this question, and I'm bouncing all over the place. Because my knee-jerk reaction is I probably wouldn't play a game. I would probably go in and edit videos. Got a lot of footage hanging around. It would be nice to piece together some more videos that I can put up over the next week. For example, I got this game Twinkle Tail, I believe it's called, for the Genesis, that showed up in the mail. And my son wanted to know if he could do the filming for me, which I was like, awesome, go ahead. So I got this really shaky opening footage of Twinkle Tail for the Genesis. So I got to do a little introduction where it's like, I know it's shaky, but it was just awesome to have my son be a part of the video making process. So it'd be nice to patch that together, get something going there. But let's assume that I went home, I did all that for an hour or two, and now that's done, and now I can play video games. What would it be? I've been talking about Tekken 5 during this recording, so part of me wants to go back and play that Tekken 5 adventure mode. Not even the one-on-one fighting. I'd like to do the adventure mode at this point. But even now, I'm bouncing all around. Something is possessing me to play the original Counter-Strike 1.6 again as well. I haven't played that in a while. One thing I've never done with those Counter-Strike games is used an external website for matchmaking, which, if you play Counter-Strike Source or Counter-Strike 1.6, that's the way to go, from what I understand. You can get a straight competitive 5v5 game going, just like in CSGO, which I didn't realize at one point. But the reality is, I probably chill out of my carpet, the carpet of my office, and start playing some of my PlayStation games. I got games I haven't played yet I haven't played Crimson Skies for the Xbox. That's a new game for me. Maybe I should throw that in. But no, I'm going to go in and do my day of work. And then when I get home, I'm going to enjoy it. As for the rest of you guys, I'll see you back at the Panzer Studios, you lucky dogs. You know, I did that same thrift store, the same Goodwill today after work. And the second time I walked in there, I was like, where even in this place would they put video games? I don't know why. For some reason, I think that particular one is never going to be a hit. So I'm going to give it a week or two, and I'll try it again. In the meantime, let's see what else is going on. Okay, here's one for you. Over at Battle of the Bits, this is the most liked and played track. This is the submission to the spring tracks thus far that everyone seems to like. The name of the song is The Adventures of Game Boy.dmf. It's from Young Gotenks. It's good, man. People like it for a reason. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Alright, guys and gals, it's a small program here on Tiger Claw Radio. It's just me, it's just you. Let's take advantage of that fact. Let's talk, alright? It's the fail bag. It's the time where you can reach me. Anything you got to say, I'd love to just, I'd react. Epic reaction. Ooh. Okay, so the best place to get a hold of me is YouTube. I've also been working pretty hard on TigerClawTV.com. Just getting some interesting things to look at. If I see it, if I think it's awesome, I'm going to make sure it's up on TigerClawTV.com. I'm doing the best I can to make that happen. So there as well. Also thenextround.net, I check there as well. But the guaranteed place is YouTube. So let's start over at YouTube and take a look at some of the comments that I've had over the last week. All right. KT Johnson, a.k.a. Kid Thunder, leaves a comment on the Double Dragon video. He goes, I like the one-on-one battle mode in this game. And you know what? I gotta say, man, I did too. Battle mode in Double Dragon was really something that was missed in the later two games. I know there was a Double Dragon fighting game, I think, on the Super Nintendo, maybe? I don't know. I never played that one, but the original Double Dragon, that was a really fun mode to play with my older brothers. It wasn't fun in single player though, because in order to make it difficult, they gave the computer like a ton more health than they're supposed to have. Very weird. 16bitter writes on the PS2 multiplayer party box video, he writes, Soul Calibur 2 is a must. I definitely agree with your assessment there. Try out Katamari Damashi's second player cooperative mode for some hilarious fun too. You know what, man? I remember, and I wrote this in a text comment, Katamari Damashi was really popular back in the day. A lot of people raved about that game, and I never got around to playing it. What does that go for now? I know it's not cheap, but I don't think it's prohibitively expensive either. Alright, I'm looking it up right now. I'm going to say about $10. Katamari Damacy video games. It's pretty close. 15, you could probably get it for cheaper if you stock it and take your time. Yeah, there's one for $10. Yeah, $10. Okay, guys, those of you who know this game, Katamari Damacy, is it worth $10? I don't know. Tell me what you think. I know it's mega popular, or at least it was when it came out. Never played it though. Never played it, and I'm collecting PS2 games right now, along with original Xbox games. Alright, Alex Swingle has one about some past comments related to a thumbnail picture. Alex, I'm going to get back to this because it involves opening up the next round link you included and describing the comment. So bear with me. I get you. Nope, I do see it. We'll just do it. Okay. He's talking about the 2 NES ROM hacks video. You can see I just got home from work. So I still have on my tie, and I'm holding up 2 Nintendo cartridges with my eyes closed in deep thought, as if I was evangelizing door to door. And the comment that Alex writes is, it's very important to describe the thumbnail picture after reading the comments from me and Durabka. I would hate to see this treasure be lost in a sea of internet comments. And yeah, I look like Jehovah's Witness coming to tell you the good news about Super Luigi Brothers and Rockman No Constancy. And thus the comments that were left on that posting on the next round was CF holding the 10 Commandments and Darabka saying, let my Goombas go. You'll have to head over to thenextround.net and dig it up. Alright. Thanks for pointing that out, Alex. PS2 multiplayer party box. Larry Bundy Jr., who I always love to hear from this guy. First of all, Guru Larry is subscribed to like 1 million people. He's everywhere in the classic games realm on YouTube. He shows up and leaves a comment. So I'm always happy to see anything he's got to say. He writes, I wouldn't mind picking up a second PS2 now and play some link-up games, especially since it's all so dirt cheap right now. And you know what? I never really thought about that. Just getting an entirely separate system. I think the only thing that's holding me back is my interest in getting a system that's pre-8-bit era. I've been looking at, even today, I was looking at Atari 7800s. I was looking at ColecoVisions and Intellivisions. I want one of those 3 systems. ColecoVision, Intellivision, Atari 7800. One of those 3 I want to get. I'm still figuring out where it's going to go. Like there's clearly some logistical issues I got to work out before I can make that happen. Logistical issues not having to do with money, but got to work some things out. A couple PS2s would be fun though. Let's see. On last week's podcast, the Gaming Beast writes, I'll probably check out some ROM hacks. There are many where they convert the entire game into a new game. It is cool that people are making them. I gotta check out VG Music. I thought that last song you made with Famine Tracker and hadn't released yet. Oh wait, hang on. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. I thought that last song was a song you made with Famine Tracker and hadn't released yet. Maniac Mansion is a great game. I hear Thumbleweed Park is a spiritual sequel. For the most part, I want to play a game on the original hardware, like PC's RPGs on a PC. Although certain CRPGs do look better on the NES and SNES and also play easier. I can feel with the Amiga virus store. Oh, man, I'm doing such a bad time. I'm doing very bad at this whole reading thing, Sean. So bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm going to get this, all right? I'm just really tired, so I'm going to muscle through it. Maniac Mansion is a great game. I hear Tumbleweed Park is a spiritual sequel. For the most part, I want to play a game on the original hardware, like PC RPGs on PCs. Although certain CRPGs do look better on the SNES and SNES and also play easier. I can feel the Amiga virus story. My cousin had viruses on his Amiga games, and we tried to remove them with a virus removal program. Sometimes it helped, sometimes it didn't. I remember his Amiga copy had a glitch where Sonia's legs were a pixel mess because of the virus. I really need to play some Amiga games on the emulator. Question of the Beast. What old school computer would you add to your gaming collection? And if you would have the money and the know-how, I would probably get the C64 and or the Amiga 500, although the ZX Spectrum might be neat. Then I would have to get an old tube TV just for it. Just seeing that C64 startup on a TV might be worth getting it. Maybe one day. For the Death Mug of Doom, broski, I'm rooting for you too. Gaming Beast 82 on YouTube. Always good to hear from you, man. So you got some good stuff in here. The track I played last week, it was not released on streaming. It was a bonus hidden track on the last of the album I made, but it only appears if you download it. If you go to the Bandcamp page and just stream the tracks in, it's hidden. So it's a bonus track. Only if you download the album can you get it. But it's been out forever. I changed the name, I think, before I released it. I remember I made most of that song like while talking to somebody. I was in a boring conversation with I can't remember who it was. Nobody I hang out with now. Probably nobody you guys would know. But yeah, I was really proud of that one. And I don't know why I ended up putting it as like a bonus track. I think because that song made me think about Tenchi Muyo, and at the time I was building a concept album around Maniac Mansion, and I think that might be why. Even though I think that's like the strongest song on that whole album, and it's a hidden track. So, I don't know. Bad choices, right? You talked about some computer games being better on the NES and SNES. Some RPGs. Yeah, you're right. I agree, but I think there's also a line where that stops. Like when the Might and Magic games started getting complicated, or not complicated, but started looking really nice. You know, I think that was it for CRPGs on Super Nintendo. I think a good example of that would be Wizardry. I think it's Wizardry 6, whichever one is Bane of the Cosmic Forge. That came out on Super Nintendo, I believe in Europe, right? And I've seen the ROM, and it doesn't hold a candle to the PC. I think that's the start of where you got to be. It's go PC or go home with those types of games. But there was some that came out on the Genesis that I never played, right? Some Electronic Arts RPG style games. King's Bounty on the Genesis. Man, oh man. I want to get that. That'd be great. Super expensive now. So you asked what computer would I add to my gaming collection. I've thought about it. I thought about it recently, and my knee-jerk reaction, the first one I looked into was the Commodore 64. I've never owned one, but a big part of getting a computer would be ease of access to the software. One of the things I love about the Atari right now is Atari games are so prevalent. They're so readily accessible because they were so prevalent. So many of them were made, and they all lasted. Commodore 64, I don't know what the deal is, but if you maybe it's just eBay. If you look the games up on eBay, you're going to pay a lot. I mean, not universally, but what I saw available was a little bit pricey. So we're not just talking about the price of the unit, because it looks like you could get, realistically, you could get a Commodore 64 for like $150, $160, right? Sounds like a lot. But maybe I would take that over $250 for an Atari box, right? Suddenly it doesn't sound so bad. Well, I actually considered it. But you really have to look at the cost of ownership over the lifespan of the system. So I then thought about getting the Apple II, which is a little older and a little less powerful. But, oh man, that's an Apple II. That was the king of computers for a long time. And the only thing that stops me is my father-in-law has an Apple II, and every couple of years he brings it up and says, we should get that thing out again. So I think with classic computers, rather than buying a classic computer, I'd like to put up $50 and get like a good copy of an old Apple II game in the big box and give it to my father-in-law and be like, look, here's Apple II Flight Simulator. Now we have to get out the old machine and make sure it works. I think that's what I would do. But that's a really great question, actually. Amiga is... here's the thing about the Amiga. I have zero experience with it, but when I see the Amiga show up in other people's videos, predominantly like European video game channels, and they people talk fondly about the Amiga from their childhood days. The games that I see in those videos look amazing. Steve Benway's Amiga coverage is really good. Lawn Boys Post 1975 has some really good Amiga videos as well. So I don't know if I would chase down an official like an OG Amiga, but I would put up $5 or $10 or whatever it is for the really nice emulator. All right. Next one is from Light Studios from a couple of weeks ago from the Atari special. And he writes, at 1 minute and 40 seconds in, you announced a Blaster Master track but didn't play it. That's where I got you, Sendu. I did play it, but it wasn't a Blaster Master track. It was a track from Blaster Master Blasting Again, which is a PS1 game. And a severely underrated PS1 game, in my opinion. It's not a perfect game, but it's severely underrated. Got a few from Demez, who writes, I didn't care about Double Dragon being only single player for one very good reason. I rented it one night and had no friends over, just me alone. I may not even noticed. Played it, beat it a couple times, returned it the next day. No multiplayer missing. I had the same feeling about Final Fight on SNES. I rented it when I got my new SNES, but I was alone that night. I actually preferred game nights alone because then I did not have to share. I could play by myself all night. Gotta say, man, I feel you on that one. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, right? And we're all boys except for my sister, who's the oldest one. So among those kids, it was me and 2 of my brothers, the 2 younger, right? We were like the Nintendo group, and we would play Nintendo. Me being the youngest, oftentimes I ended up sitting and watching, and when I did get to play, I was nowhere as good as my brothers were. So I understand the desire to want to be by yourself for Nintendo time. Alright, I got a couple more here. Demez writes, best 2 SNES mouse games were King Arthur's World, awesome, check a video gameplay at least, and Might and Magic 3 Isles of Terra. There is a company making a new mouse 2 now. Forget which company. $20, so if you want to spend some cash. I gotta say, Demez, if they're making a mouse now, that means it must be a laser activated, right? Or at the very least, an optical mouse. That would be pretty sweet. Because one of the things about the SNES mouse, right, was that it had the old rolling ball, the way they used to make computer mice. I think I would pay $20 for that. Let's see. Alex Swingle writes, I got good news for you. There are 4 pages of games to research on. Oh, right. I'm sorry. I skipped the next one. He also writes, I'm new to GOG. Maybe you got advice. How do you find shmups on GOG? Is there a way? The filter I see shooter is so generic and full of FPS stuff. Shmups are my jam, yo. And I wrote this in text, but I'll go over it in case there's anybody out there who hasn't bought from GOG before. I can only think of 2 shmups that are on GOG. And I wrote this in text. Tyrian 2000 and Raptor Call of the Shadows. I know those aren't the only ones they sell, but those are the only ones I know of. You'll have to dig for it. I don't know why, but they don't use the shmups label. Not everybody uses it. Swingle responds by saying, I got good news for you. There are 4 pages of games to search for on GOG with the shooter in the genre tag, and less than 1 dozen of them are shoot 'em ups. Half of that dozen is the Raiden series. Don't bother looking is what I recommend. I don't know, Alex. I think you have a point. There certainly is frustration, but let's just take what you listed. That's the Raiden series, right? The Raiden series, Tyrene 2000, and Raptor Call of the Shadows are all good games. Even if it's just Raiden Legacy, that's a good game. The user interface is garbage, but come on now. This is good stuff. I'll tell you what, let's revisit this next week. I'm going to see if I can remember. I'll dig through GOG. I'll see if I can find some good shmups, and we'll go over it. But you know what? I have to make a note of this, otherwise it is not going to happen. Give me a second here. Look for shmups on GOG. Alright. Demez writes, I would never play a turn-based game on a console that was designed for PC. They always suck. Demez, I'll tell you what, more often than not they do, but you never know. I think there are a couple exceptions to the rule. Desm writes, for Double Dragon, a top-notch classic. To me, the Double Dragon series was done the best on the NES. I played the first one in the arcade a lot, and it was great. It was a great port for me. The less often I saw the sequel in the arcades, and only saw the third arcade game in MAME much later. Wow, it sucks so bad. Still, have yet to beat a single one of them on the NES, but I think they held up great over time. The Genesis port is one I picked up over a year ago, and it looks fantastic, but it plays a little jerky. You know what? As far as the arcade games are concerned, I'm right there with you. I saw the first one in the arcade many times, and that was it. I never saw the second one at all. I know you saw the second one once and never the third one, but that was it for me. I didn't see any of those again in the arcade until MagFest, and even then I think it might have been on a Raspberry Pi or a MAME cab or something. Let's see. Alright, so the last one is from Desm101. He writes, 21 minutes in, nice track, sounds great. Thank you very much, man. I'll tell you what, I've always stayed away from playing my own chiptunes here on Tiger Claw Radio, because I felt like it was kind of an ego trip, right? Part of the reason, one of the things the chiptunes are supposed to do is to break up the show, bring something else in from outside, take you somewhere else. I figured if I play my own chiptunes here, it's just more of me, that's all you're getting. So, it kind of takes away from the variety a little bit, and also, there's just so many awesome chiptunes out there. Why limit myself to, I don't know. I'm glad it worked out, and I'm glad you had something nice to say, because I've always felt weird at the prospect of putting my chiptunes up there. And I also like to mention I haven't made a chiptune in 8 years. I bought some software to make chiptunes on my phone, but when I tried to do it, my son would find my save files and destroy them. And I made a bunch of songs that way, like hooks and starts to songs that he would go in and just totally destroy. He's, just childlike. I want to play too. Let's see if, hey, look, Dad, I changed it. Look how it sounds now. So I think that was the end of me being a chiptune artist, at least for a while. He's getting older now, though. So I don't know. Maybe it'd be good to start again. I was never, I don't have any delusions that I'll be some mega chiptune artist. But it's cool to have albums to point to as part of my legacy that were like, I made these are original tunes that I made, that I give out, and you could just go and get them and listen to them for free, and it's just something that's out there. It's something I kind of like. So look, man, whatever has brought you here, 1 hour and 5 minutes into the show, thanks for spending this time hanging out with me. I had a good time. We played some chiptunes. We talked some video games. And you know what? We made it. So just before I go, I want to take a second to just give you some encouragement. Keep doing what you got to do, man. Especially if you're feeling like you got nothing left. Especially then. And I'm rooting for you. I really am. See you guys next Monday. Have a good